I'll be honest, Netflix shows have me feeling kind of blue lately. At this point, this is not a mark of excellence. So many times I got tricked. I wasn't served great TV. I wasn't even served garbage. No, something worse than garbage. Mediocrity. And what predicts mediocrity more than anything? I'll tell you what. A gimmick. When I heard the premise of a show that claims that you can watch its color-coded episodes in any order with like 5,000 combinations, my first thought was red flag. But I love a heist movie when it is done well. So why am I sitting here on the 2nd of January with half a set and no sleep? Well, Kaleidoscope passed with flying colors. Not flawless, but super interesting. Let's talk about how it works, why it's great or not so great, and the overall trickiness of rating something like this. This video contains no major spoilers, but it's best to go in blind and come back to this video after that, so you have been advised.
Witness a heist.
What you just saw was 1/10 of the first episode, Black. I can definitely think of more elegant ways to start a story than this, but we'll get to that in the negatives part. So between the two fixed points, beginning and end, you can decide the order for yourself, or trust Netflix's shuffle and watch in that order. There are also small and bigger time jumps between episodes, so depending on your order, you can even travel years in between. The story is about a team of experts and a big heist, with some personal stakes in the mix, nothing unexpected here. Among others, you can see the relationship between our characters 24 years in the past, or the day after the heist. And interestingly, the last episode you have to watch is not the last in chronological order, and that actually creates some weirdness, I think, but we'll get to that too. For now, let's talk about the fundamental concept that this show works with, the montage. In 1922, Soviet filmmaker Lev Kuleshov presented an article in a theater journal in which he presented the Kuleshov effect. I should rename this channel to DNS TV. The Kuleshov effect, in essence, described what we today call the montage. The concept that additional meaning is created with two sequential shots instead of one isolated shot. This seems pretty basic, but after his student Sergei Eisenstein popularized it in his works and gave birth to Soviet montage theory, it became the basis of everything we know and love as cinema today. Famously, Alfred Hitchcock demonstrated this in a 1964 interview where he placed two different shots between two identical shots and got drastically different outcomes. But who cares about Hitchcock? Allow me to demonstrate. Yeah, maybe we should have stayed with Hitchcock. And this is what the colors of Kaleidoscope promise, a unique experience. And this is what we're gonna try and unpack as well. It will be much harder because we're talking about thousands of different combinations and time jumps, and I've only seen this montage myself in one specific way. But we can theorize. This is why rating this show is so difficult, because your experience may highly differ from mine, but we'll take a shot at that too. Let's look at my order. My order was yellow, green, blue, orange, violet, red, pink, and white. And believe me, this order is almost flawless, so if you made it this far and are intrigued, I can recommend it. I love the mental exercise of trying to think about what others saw by this point. The way the writers set up hooks in the story, I had extensive knowledge about the background of a particular character and understood their motivations, but I had no idea why other characters didn't like each other. It was so fun thinking about how I saw a reveal in the Red episode, but I haven't seen what made that happen yet, and I'll only get to see that in the finale. Or how one of the crew members got an injury, but 2 episodes ago they were fine, so now I need to theorize what happened in between those episodes. There's foreshadowing that essentially works as a reveal and vice versa because of the arbitrary order. It's super fun and a genius way of guerrilla marketing. Talking to your friends about your experience is so cool. It's the one time I almost feel like somebody giving me a spoiler would be kind of fun because they didn't cheat the system. They are just sharing their perspective of the story. It's like piecing a puzzle together. But I won't spoil. Pinky promise. Now compared to my order, here's the chronological order. So you can see that I had a few time jumps myself. But what's interesting is that because obviously the heist itself is the last episode, you've already seen all of the setup and the payoff And this way, as a writer, you don't need to stop the characters from breaking into the vault to create unexpected drama, explain motivations, or share exposition. The first 11 minutes and 35 seconds of the episode, nobody speaks because the viewer is at the edge of their seat, knowing full well what will happen, but not knowing how. And it's kind of impressive how many surprises they could still fit into it, regardless of us seemingly having all the answers. It's great how the show sets up fake betrayals and true betrayals as well, so you still have something essential to find out in the last episode. And let me also just mention how the creators found countless ways to sneak these colors into the episodes. I think that this was done pretty tastefully for the most part, and it would have been so easy to overdo it. So all of this is great, and I'm so glad that the show got the green light. But let's take off those rose-colored glasses and face the negatives. I briefly touched on it, but starting the show the way they did it, it invoked kind of a goofy vibe.
Who gets away with it?
And I even know of people who skipped the first episode and didn't even learn about the whole thing because they thought it was a trailer. I mean, look, it even sticks out like a sore thumb in my editing software. I think a dark screen, white text approach would have worked much better. Like this. Okay, I got lazy, and I know it's a bit lame still, but at least I don't feel like I'm being sold an empty soda bottle.
Who betrays whom?
But I feel like it's a compromise, and most of my critique is about this. It's not literally bad stuff, it's just small compromises that had to be made in order for this experiment to succeed. Just as much as they needed a flashy intro sequence, they needed to start every single episode with voiceover exposition and full of enigmatic statements that many times didn't make sense in the moment. They also had to trick the audience into the sequence of episodes not mattering when that's absolutely not true. After some digging, I found out that most viewers were given the same few random orders, and my amazing experience was actually semi-curated as well. It wasn't truly random. Like, I imagine other people actually not having a great time when a character's return is presented while they still haven't experienced that the character dies. In this way, the show also seems to favor binging a bit too much, as the story just works way better if you still have all the small details in your mind. I guess it makes it rewatchable too though, so you decide what you like. There were also things that worked quite well in my order and some that did not so much, and in particular it relates to how well these things are spaced out. In carefully crafted shows like Better Call Saul, we get callbacks of small things episodes or even seasons later, but imagine if the story worked in a random timeline as well. These callbacks could end up being right next to each other and, or being in the wrong order, feeling out of place. But credit where it's due, Kaleidoscope tried planting these nods regardless. The flutter kicks and Hannah's brave and strong mantra are two motifs that keep coming back, and for me, they were spaced out quite well. And this is what I mean when I say the random order of Netflix is quite sus. I imagine these are all spread evenly in all the popular random orders the creators seeded for us. And even still, the first time I heard this,
show me where you're brave. Show me where you're strong.
I immediately knew this was going to be a recurring motif because the scene has an unreasonable emphasis not really supported by the dramatic tension of the scene. Almost like I was supposed to have a reaction which I couldn't have because of a lack of information. And to give another example, I would have much preferred not knowing why Bob was a mute in the Pink episode. It would have made him an enigmatic psycho, almost like Anton in No Country for Old Men. Just to be clear, I don't think this is a mistake, I just think it's opportunities that cannot be harnessed because you don't know what order the episodes will be watched in. And one last negative in my eyes, while I appreciate the ballsy move of not putting the last episode as the last in the timeline, I think the emotional closure of seeing the ultimate fate of the characters is important for the audience to not feel disconnected at the end. Once again, I can also say that this makes the show much more rewatchable, especially if you go in chronological order the second time around. But I personally think that all the careful suspense building, especially in episodes Red and Pink, don't work out if you don't actually watch White last. But one question remains at the end of the day. Is Kaleidoscope a good story if we remove the gimmick. Well, this video would not have been made if it was not. What gives the show its true power is it's trying to be more than an average heist movie, and I think all the compromises that were undeniably made in order to draw attention to it were probably worth it. The highest praise I can give to it is that Kaleidoscope almost feels like not a genre film at all. The texture of the story and the characters carry drama into the less exciting scenes and keeps it afloat even when the marketing hook of random episode order can't. Giancarlo Esposito, the ever amazing show stealer supporting actor, finally gets his own time in the spotlight and passes the bar with ease. It's particularly great to see a protagonist that doesn't fit the typical crime mastermind trope and is a bit old, a bit out of shape, and even a bit careless at times. On top of that, the acting hand in hand with the writing makes him feel more nuanced than he really had to be for this kind of plot. The main antagonist, Rufus Sewell, finally gets a script that matches his talents, unlike in The Man in the High Castle, which is probably the greatest missed opportunity in the streaming age of television. But hey, he was among the best in that show, and he's among the best here. The rest of the cast, while being great, won't get any special mentions now because we are going to head to the best and the worst episodes of the series, which is a tricky task. Putting the gimmick aside is impossible because the show controls how much information the viewer has, and that directly influences which dramatic beats work and which fall flat. But we can factor this in. So, the best episode is the one that does not get worse if you haven't seen the others, but it can get significantly better if you have. So it has to be Violet, hands down, and it features the best performance of Giancarlo Esposito, so there is no contest here. Following the same logic of the worst episode relying on other episodes the most, it has to go to Orange for multiple reasons. This had two plot lines, heist prep and FBI work, and both were disappointing for different reasons. The heist prep is simply boring, in case you have already seen Yellow, as the details of the heist were already presented there, and this is just setting up technicalities that either aren't important yet or are already obvious to the viewer. In the same vein, the FBI plot is kind of pointless if you already know the result of the investigation, which can be seen in red and pink. This could only be salvaged by interesting characters and finding out about motivations, which sadly is a total snooze fest. These two are the only characters in the entire show that feel 100% tried and tested cliché territory, and they are generally unrelatable and antipathetic. And in this way, you can certainly see why we talked about montage theory. It's exactly as Hitchcock pointed out. Flutter kicks can signify care between two characters, and they can also come off as empty banter, and someone can look like either an enigmatic psycho or just a loudmouth thug. Even still, it's the most fun to be had with a Netflix original since like forever, and it's a fun experiment if nothing else. But I believe that the content underneath is perfectly good, exciting television. It is understandable in today's saturated market that a show wants to stand out. It is like with YouTube thumbnails. If you want to be seen, you have to sacrifice some authenticity. Through unique this is impossible to say. You gotta play the game, and Kaleidoscope played it quite well. But what was your experience? Was it great like mine, or was it a disaster? And please tell me your order in the comments. Thanks for watching.
And they will till we all come to understand. None of us are free.
None of us are free.